Like many of my fellow Gen Z, at times I feel almost completely lost. I've had that feeling off and on since I graduated high school in 2020 during COVID. I didn't get a prom, I didn't get a proper graduation, I didn't even get to say goodbye to many of my friends. Quite a few who I've never seen since. What was I going to do? Who was I going to become? I had absolutely no idea what kind of career I wanted to pursue when I graduated. I was lost. So of course, I did what everyone else was doing, and I took on debt, and I went to school. Only difference is, I went to a trade school to become an electrician. Then after 18 months, I graduated with an associate's degree. I was supposed to be happy, but there was that sinking feeling again. I was lost. I thought, what now? I find a job where I make just barely enough to survive the next 40, 45 years, and then just have barely enough to be able to retire. And that is what a lot of Gen Z is facing right now. Even after getting a degree in a very in-demand field, I'm still making just enough to get by with a bit left over each month. Sure, there's lots of jobs out there in my field, but many don't pay enough for people to be able to afford to buy a home or raise a family. I am currently 24 years old and I still live with my parents. Could I have been able to afford to move out a couple years ago? Yeah, I sure could have. But I would have never been able to save nearly as much money as I am right now. If I had moved out right after I graduated, 18, 19 years old, I would have never been able to pay off my $40,000 in student loan debt. I would have never been able to max out my Roth IRA for the past 4 years, and I never would have been able to save $60,000 as a down payment on a house. And I believe that that is what my fellow Gen Z needs to do if we are ever going to be able to afford a home or afford to be able to raise a family. If you're able to, live at home for as long as you can and keep piling up that cash. If not, move in with roommates or house hack or something like that, because living alone is basically just not an option for us. I look around at my peers and they went out and they got jobs, and some of them make very good money, but they're broke. They moved out at 18 as soon as they graduated. They started renting a house for $1,500 a month, living alone, got a $1,200 truck payment. But if they would have lived at home with their parents for a handful of years after they got a job, or they moved in with roommates, they could have paid zero or very little in rent. And if they would have bought or kept their beater cars, they would have had no car payment. They could have saved up an emergency fund. They could have saved for a down payment on a home, but many never did that. There are also people who have very toxic relationships with their family, and they're forced to move out early, and that really sucks. I definitely feel for people like that because my girlfriend was one of them. She moved out very soon after graduation, I think when she was like 19. But she's doing good. She has a decent job, very cheap rent. She has no car payment whatsoever. But she still only has about $500 left at the end of the month. Not because she's doing anything wrong, but because everything is just so expensive now, and wages have not kept up at all. I got very lucky with finding her very early in my life. She's my high school sweetheart, and we actually just got engaged. But with that engagement comes that lost feeling. How am I going to give her the home that she deserves? The nice car, or the fun vacations? I just can't do that with the money that I make now. That's why I'm trying to start some side hustles. That's why I'm starting this YouTube channel, to try and grow something and see what it becomes. Hopefully someday I can make some money off this channel. But that's how many other Gen Z men feel. They think they have to work 2 or 3 jobs or start a bunch of side hustles just to support their family. The truth is that they really do. I mean, we are struggling. But there's plenty of other guys out there who can't even find a girlfriend. The modern dating culture is just so entirely messed up. I myself have never really had to deal with it because I met my girlfriend in high school, and she was basically my first long-term girlfriend. But I've seen firsthand how it's destroyed some of my friends and some of my coworkers. Many of them have just completely given up. They don't go out. They aren't even on dating apps. They just go to work and that's it. When they go home, they just get sucked into the internet because it's the only thing that they have. And I believe that that is what we really need to solve as a generation. We were the first generation to be born with the internet. It's been there our entire lives. Now, can it be good? Absolutely. But it can also destroy people, and I believe that I myself and many of you have experienced this firsthand. They spend hours and hours a day on their phone just mindlessly doom scrolling. And I fall victim to this quite often. It's a really bad habit, and we need to try our best to avoid doom scrolling. We need to get away from that and go back to actually hanging out with people. Going out, hanging out with friends, meeting new people. Going up to women and asking them out on a date, face to face. Without us going back to this, soon everybody's going to have an AI girlfriend or boyfriend, and I really don't want to see that happen. As I'm sure all of you are already aware, AI is starting to replace jobs. Soon, entire fast food restaurants will almost be completely run by AI. Things like coding jobs, analysts, editors, the list goes on. It's a very, very scary thing to think about. And with thinking about that comes that sinking feeling. What's the world going to look like in 50 years? Will entire factories be run by AI? Will truck drivers been completely put out of work by self-driving AI vehicles? How many people are going to become unemployed due to AI, and what will that do to them? Are we going to get universal basic income, or will we not? And what would happen to them people then? I myself have picked a field as a maintenance technician that is very AI proof, but what about my girlfriend's job? What about my friends? I cannot encourage you guys enough to try and find a career that AI can't take or would have a very hard time taking, because in the coming years it is going to become such a huge threat. So I hope you guys made it to the end of my first video, and if you did, thank you. I would like to end this video off with a quote. You will own nothing and be happy. Don't let that happen to you.